Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for being here because I'm a completely new place in DC area. And this is also my first speech and giving lecture in DC after a year when I moved from California to DMV. Okay, good evening. First of all, I'd like to talk about the Russian cognitive warfare in the Chinese language information space. Yeah, I want to highlight this matter because very few people actually really talk about this in the Western language world because it only happened in the Chinese language information space. Especially Taiwan has become a battlefield for Russian cognitive warfare. And actually, Russia is not really the main actor of this warfare because China, the mainland China, the communist China, is helping Russia too. So that's why I'm here to talk about how Russia narrative gets translated and transmitted and amplified in Taiwan. Okay, so let's move to next slide. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm currently a Chinese teacher teaching Mandarin Chinese at Suitland High School in Prince George's County. It's in Maryland right now. I'm teaching high school students in their Chinese 1 and Chinese 2 classes. And I think that is a way for me to contribute to this great country because, that's what I'm good at in speaking Chinese and understanding Chinese. And actually, I was born in Dallas, Texas, United States, but I grew up in Taiwan, so that makes my English is not really my native language. So if there's anything you don't understand clearly, let me know. I will speak it again. And then I graduated from University of California, Irvine in 2007. My major was history. And then later I returned to Taiwan and get my Master of Art in Strategic Studies from Danjiang Daxue. That is a school in New Taipei City, Xinbei-Si. And I have worked in Taiwan for most of the time as a journalist. Yeah, because they know I speak English. Most of the time I translate English news into Chinese or sometimes backward. And also between 2020 and 2023, I worked as a legislative aide for legislator Chen Yixing. He's from the opposition Kuomintang party. Okay, and that was my experience. And I personally support Ukraine for many reasons. And that is how it happened in Taiwan. I think that I took this picture last year when I returned to Taipei to see my family there. And in Taipei's MRT station, metro station, I think that's from Siemens, I think that's entrance. It's gate number 6. If you walk up, you will always see people waving the flag of Ukraine. So I always stop by and take a picture of them. And also that another picture I took in the Taipei Book Affair. I think that was in 2023 or 24. Yeah, but that shows how Taiwan at that time still firmly with Ukraine. And support for Ukraine is, or at least once was, a partisan conscience in Taiwan. That's the reason why I mean was, is because it might no longer be a bipartisan conscious right now for today. And for my the reason why I support Ukraine is because I'm also a history student, and I wrote 3 books about World War II history, and they are all published in Taiwan. And the reason why I support Ukraine is because it reminds me the collaboration between United States and China during World War II. And you can see the flag of Taiwan or the Republic of China is seen in both posters. This one was published in 1943 during World War II. And this one is published in 2023 or 22 after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It demonstrates the rhyme of the history, how 80 years ago when the Republic of China was supported by the Western allies to fight against the Japanese. And today, Ukraine is being supported by the same democratic coalition against the Russian invasions. And my grandfather, he also fought in World War II, and he fought side by side with American airmen during the time. So it really reminds me how the way Zelensky fights against a giant like Russia, just like how the Republic of China did 80 years ago. That's the reason why I stand with Ukraine. And also those Russians who fight for democracy, because my family, they fought against the communists after World War II, and they got to Taiwan after 1949. That's a family lineage. And you can see how how Taiwan support Ukraine in 2023, 2022. That is a poster in Taipei Book Affair. And this one shows how brave the Ukrainian female soldiers were. Yeah, those are two examples I want to see show how Taiwan support Ukraine. And those two are the photos I took by myself because my boss, he's right here. Legislator Chen Yixing. That took place on October 2022. I think that was like 8 months after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and Ukraine's People's Deputy Kira Rudik was in Taiwan to meet my boss and other legislators in Taiwan to demonstrate how Taiwanese support Ukraine against the invasion by Russia. Doesn't matter who. It didn't matter which parties you belong. You stand firmly with Ukraine. And I even translate Kia Rudik's speech to Taiwan's World League of Freedom and Democracy during her visit. Let's play what she says to the Taiwanese.
It's going to be a little quiet, so do your best.
Okay. That's too quiet. Hold on.
Member of the Ukrainian Parliament, leader of the Holos Party, and Vice President of ALDE.
Dear friends from the World League of Freedom and Democracy,
8.5 months
I am Kira Rudik, member of Ukrainian Parliament, leader of the Holos Party, and Vice President of ALDE. It's 8.5 months since Russia started full-scale invasion on my country. And at the very beginning, nobody believed that it is possible to stand up to the enemy that is larger and more powerful than you. My country and my nation has proven all the skeptics wrong, because we are still standing, we are fighting back, and we have united the whole world behind us. There are a couple of lessons that we learned during this war. The first is that unity is important. It is so critical that democratic countries are supporting each other and making sure that they stand together. Second is you are responsible for your own fate. You will be getting the support only when you show the willingness to fight and to die for the liberal democratic values as we are. The third, you need to be ready for everything. Today there were 50 missiles and drones hitting Ukrainian infrastructure. And right now, over 80% of Kyiv, where I live, people do not have water supplies, electricity. And this winter will be extremely hard and complicated for us. However, we are not afraid. However, we are not giving up. We are going to be fighting, we are going to be standing, and we encourage all the democratic nations of the world to keep the unity and to keep the support. We all know the price that we are putting on the words liberty, on the words freedom, on the words democracy. In our case, this price is our own lives. But this price can be also a
encouragement to Taiwan and very inspired. Inspired Taiwan's because Taiwan was facing potential threat from mainland China too. As you can see, Taiwan compared to Ukraine is even smaller, and China may not be larger than Russia, but compared to Taiwan, it's still much a giant. So her speech actually was very encouragement to the Taiwanese audience at the time. But sorry. And also, when I was with my legislator, I visited the headquarters of Kuomintang, and back then you can see at the time Kuomintang say stand with Ukraine. That's a very big flyer to demonstrate how both the ruling Democratic Party and the opposite Kuomintang stand together to support Ukraine. And also there were even Taiwanese fighting for Ukraine. This guy, his name is Zheng Sengguang. He gave his life to protect Ukraine. As you can see, he was considered a hero by the Ukrainian government back then. Yeah, I think I like to use him as a example to show how Taiwan and Ukraine help each other. I think like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, and he's now considered a martyr in both nations. Yeah. Zheng Sengguang, I think he is a native Taiwanese. That's just like the Native American. He's not even ethnic Han Chinese. He is from the native tribe of Taiwan. I think it's Ameizu, something like that. But I'm not really sure. But he did fought very well to defend the democracy. But there are also amplification of the Russian narrative in Taiwan, and also supporting of Ukraine is not always the dominant view in Taiwan. There are also people speaking for Russia since the beginning of the war. Yeah. For example, there are Russian narrative in Taiwan portraying Ukrainian as neo-Nazis. Those are the Chinese posts I got from the Facebook. I take snapshot and I translate them into the English. Yeah, it is from a Chinese webpage. And all the examples I took are either from the fan page or the group. I don't really take individual page if they are not famous figures. If they are only common people, I don't want to show their name. But I only take some, okay, sorry, don't touch the screen. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I only talk about those websites, fan page or group, or also the famous individual in Taiwan who are very well known enough. So I don't want common people to be bullied on the internet because they don't really understand the reason of the war, and they are actually more of a victims to the Russian propaganda or Russian narrative. Yeah, here's another one. This is another post by the group Ghost Needle Alliance. Yeah, I translate that again. They're talking about Russian as a neo-Nazi. Ukrainian as neo-Nazis again. They use this to justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I think you are very familiar with that because in a lot English narrative and even European narrative, they use this to justify Putin's invasion against Ukraine. And also, right now, I like to introduce you 3 very famous Taiwanese pro-Putin public figures. As I told you, I will only use public figures who are famous enough because, yeah, they are not afraid to be known by the people already. They are mostly, I think, KOL, online influencers, and some of them are even politicians from many parties in Taiwan. They are more willing to amplify Russian narrative in the island or the Chinese cyberspace, yes, or Chinese information space. Okay. So first one is Qiu Siqing. He is a Taiwanese political commentator active on television talk shows. He is a retired Air Force officer, and he frequently discusses the Russian-Ukrainian war and international politics. He is known for repeatedly predicting a decisive Russian victory. However, many of the predictions have not materialized. And also in Taiwan's military discussion circle, he is sometimes referred to 747. It's a word play based on the pronunciation of his name in Chinese, because in Chinese 747 is 747, and his Chinese name is Qiu Siqing, so it's like 747. Yeah, he is a very controversial figure in Taiwan. And I'm going to show you some example of what he said on the internet. First of all, he used the Russian narrative from the Russian Defense, Ministry of Russian Defense, to claim that how the courage and heroism while carrying out combat mission during the special military operations. Unfortunately, he just repeated what the Russian spokesperson said during the beginning of the war, and he considered those Russian. They are fighting against the radical, the neo-Nazism. He portrays the Russian as a hero against fascism. This is the first thing he said during the beginning of the war. He was quoting I don't know how to pronounce, Konashikov. How to pronounce that name? Kashenkov. Yeah, that's the Russian spokesperson during the period. And also on February 24th, he said that Ukraine had no air force anymore. That is not really correct because you can see now the Ukrainian air force is actually becoming stronger. It is having F-16 and Mirage 2000 right now. So that is really a joke, but he did call that from the Russian. Yeah, sorry. And another one. And he says that the outcome of the war had been decided by the third day. That was happening. He said that on March 27th of 2022. That was about a month after the war started, but he said that should be end in 3 days. And a lot of commentators from mainland China even predict that the war would be end in 1 hour and 22 minutes, but it never happened, never materialized. So he lost his credibility in Taiwan's military circle, and that's how he earned his nickname, 七四七. Yeah. And also, he talked about the information warfare too. He said in the Russian-Ukrainian war, what I have observed, that information warfare has had virtually no influence on margin warfare. Those who are okay. Anyway, he says that the information warfare play no role in helping you to win the war. But if he said he's applying his comment to the Russia, it is actually true, because Russia's information warfare didn't really help Russia to win the war. But actually, he's hitting back on himself by quoting this. Yeah. Another one quoting amplifying Russia narrative is Hou Hanti. He is a Taipei city councilor and a member of Taiwan's pro-unification and far-right nationalistic New Party. So, what ironically, while he called Ukrainian neo-Nazis, he is actually supporting neo-Nazi agenda in Taiwan. But yeah, it's very ironic. Yeah, and also he frequently comment on international affairs too, including the Russian-Ukrainian war. And some of his statements have echoed narratives sympathetic to Russia's geopolitical perspective and accused Ukraine of being a nation of neo-Nazi. Yeah, he didn't know actually the far-right party in Ukraine, they get very little support in the parliament. Yeah, well, okay, I want to play this. Do you know? Do you know how to play this one? Yeah, this is how he said about Ukrainian is in Chinese. He said Ukraine has become a neo-Nazi nation since 2020, and he said Ukrainian worship neo-Nazi leaders who surrendered to Hitler during World War II, and worship Hitler. And he said how Ukraine helped Nazi to massacre Polish, Jews, and Russian. Yeah, so those are all from Russian narrative. Yeah, he's talking about, yeah. He's also criticizing Ukrainian nationalism. And he said in 2020 how Ukrainian government worship the how to say that? Pandora, yes. Yeah, those are all Russian ones. Yes, that he showed the photos. Yeah, and I think most of his audience don't really know the history of Ukraine, but he monopolized those narratives to accuse Ukraine for adding Nazis during the war. And also he even showed the photos. I think those are all from the Russian propaganda. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty enough for this one. How do I turn this off? Okay, so we have to finish this. Okay. Oh, the red one? How do I stop? Do you know how to stop? Okay, sorry about that. Okay. How do I move forward? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, another one, this guy is the most controversial figure in Taiwan because he not only accused Ukraine for being Nazi, he even blamed the victim of the Ukraine after the war started. And in the beginning, he was actually he was famous for being pro-nuclear energy campaigns. In the beginning, he had nothing to do with Ukraine or any issues related to Europe or China. But later on, many people suspect he has been taking money from China or something. So he's promoting Russian narrative in Taiwan through victim blaming and also, yeah. Let me show you the example. This is another one. I don't think we need to play this because it would be too long or time is limited. Yeah, he was talking about how Ukraine provoked the war through worshipping Nazi or taking military assistance from the United States against Russia, and he also blamed the eastern expansion of the NATO. He thinks those are all the three major reasons why Putin attacked Ukraine, which are not really true, and they are all from Russian narrative. And I'm going to show you some of his comment on the internet. Yeah, I think he is blaming those Ukrainian women who were raped by the Russian soldiers during the beginning of the war. That's how he say. He thinks that the woman being be held on in a bunker by the Russian for 25 days. He thinks that 25 days is too short for you to get a test result whether you were pregnant or not. So he suspects that the woman was not really raped by Russian, but instead raped by Ukrainian, their own people. So this is a very uncomfortable comment because he is actually accusing a Ukrainian woman for yeah, he's not standing with the victim, but standing with the aggressor. You can see how terrible the language he used. I don't want to talk about it, but you can see from the subtitle. Yes, and then this is another comment he made to blame the woman being sexually assaulted by the Russian soldiers. Yeah, he said even if the test result come out, that automatically prove it was done by the Russian military. He questioned whether Russian really sexually attacked the Ukrainian woman, but he said that don't you know Ukraine has neo-Nazi element and armed militias and called disinformation. So he's also using disinformation and media warfare, and he thinks that the Ukrainian soldier actually did those atrocities by themselves, not by the Russian. That's how terrible. And also he talked about another reason why many Taiwanese they didn't support Ukraine is because that in early 90s, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Ukraine actually sold weapons to China. For example, like Liaoning, the aircraft carrier Liaoning. Yeah, so he used this as an excuse to convince Taiwanese people to not support Ukraine because he said that like Su-33, although type 050 destroyer, they think Ukraine provide all those weapon systems to China. But one ironic thing is that Ukraine didn't really have Su-33 fighters, and also he forgot to mention that Russia provide much more weapons to China than Ukraine. Yeah, so that's that's a very also, right now, I can show you the narrative Taiwanese KOL or influencer use against Ukraine. First is neo-Nazi narrative. Yeah, I have shown you a lot of examples of that. They accuse Ukraine for launching genocide against Russian-speaking people in the eastern part of the nation, and also Crimea. So he thinks it justified Putin's action against Ukraine. It was a way for Putin to protect ethnic Russian group in those regions. That's the first reason. Second one is NATO expansion narrative. They always blame NATO or the United States for causing Russia to attack Ukraine. Number three is the early victory narrative. Just like Mr. 747 said, Russia will win in like 1 day or 3 months. Doesn't matter what, but right now it's fourth anniversary right now, right? The war has been continued for 4 years. It's still not ending, so it's completely joke. And the fourth is the information warfare denial narrative. They deny Russia. They deny Russia has launched any information warfare against Ukraine, but instead they accuse Ukraine for doing that. And the fifth one is the most uncomfortable one. It's the atrocity denial. and the victim blaming narrative, that really reminds me of how the Japanese right wing deny rape of Nanking or Unit 7731. Now they are doing the same, using the same tactic against Ukraine. That's very, I don't feel comfortable about this for sure. And this is the chart I made. And one important thing is that the Russian narrative rarely enter Taiwan directly. They are first filtered and amplified through the PRC information ecosystem, because Taiwan is very far away from Russia. So there's no way for Taiwanese to read and understand the Russian narrative. So it must be coming through from the People's Republic of China. See, most of the narrative originally come from Russian Today or Sputnik, those Russian government media. And then the communist China, they have the Global Times, CCTV or Weibo. They use that to sorry about that. They use their official platform to infiltrate Taiwan's the internet information space. A lot of them you can even see them in Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, they use the environment of freedom of speech in Taiwan and the Western world to expand Russian narrative into Taiwan. Yeah, and the PRC was definitely behind all those tricks. Yeah, why does Beijing support Russia's cognitive warfare? Yeah, there's a reason. There must be a reason why the PRC supports Russia. Many people believe that the PRC and Russia are natural allies, but actually they are not. As I say, if you are older generation Chinese, if you will, for example, like this World War II veterans I interviewed in Taiwan, his name is Yao Yunlong. He know which country stole China's territory most. That country was not Japan, instead Russia. Because he fought in World War II and he fought in Cold War, he knew how Russia helped the communist China during the war. So he was never he never showed any sympathy to Russia. If you are older generation, you know how Russia and China were actually natural enemy instead of natural ally, because both countries are very nationalistic, and many Chinese still believe that Russia steals a lot of territory from China. You can see the pink color, blue color. They are all control China's natural territory or the lost territory stolen by Russia. And many Chinese, even the communists, they believe that someday they are going to take back those territory from Russia. And in Taiwan, traditionally Taiwan is anti-communist, even under the leader of Chiang Kai-shek. This is how Chiang Kai-shek welcomed the Ukrainian leader, I think, Yaroslav Stestico to Taiwan. That was the event held by World Anti-Communist League. That was the forerunner of do you know the Kira Rudik? She spoke to the World League of Freedom and Democracy. This league is the forerunner of the World Freedom of Democracy. It was back then known as a World Anti-Communist League. So you can see in 50s and 60s, there were common interests shared by the Ukrainian exiles and Chiang Kai-shek to oppose Soviet Union and Soviet Russia. And that's one of Chiang Kai-shek's book, Soviet Russia in China. It shows how nationalist China was opposing the Soviet Union. And even the communist China, later, they became enemy against Soviet. I think Eugene had made a lot of lecture about that already. Yeah, this was a picture of a Russia T-62 tank captured by the communist China during 1969. Damansky Island incident or Zhenbaodao 事件. Yeah, that was how China and eventually Mao and Nixon visit China in 1972 to form a ally. It's not really they didn't really become a ally in name, but in fact, China and the United States were working together against Soviet Union after 1972 until the dissolve of the Soviet Union in 1991. So at that time, China was actually helping the United States against Soviet Union. Yeah, so both the nationalist China and the communist China had an traditional anti-Russian settlement. Yeah. But why does China choose Russia over Ukraine for today? Yeah. First, I think it's strategic isolation. Second is anti-separationism logic. Third, resource. And fourth is balance of power. Yeah, for the why does China choose Russia over Ukraine? Well, the first thing is that after becoming the world's second largest economy, China sought to avoid strategic isolation by maintaining alignment with Russia. Because from China's perspective, if Russia gets defeated, China think itself will become the next target of the Western democracy. So it has to help Russia to as a buffer zone. It treats Russia as a buffer zone against Western blockade or Western containment. Yeah, China really needs Russia now to prevent itself from being totally isolated from the global society. Especially Russia, yeah, it has a strong economic relationship with the Western world. It doesn't want to be the target of the democratic blockade. Yeah. And another reason for China to choose Russia over Ukraine is because Beijing finds Russia's greatest Slavic narrative appealing. Yeah, because if you support Ukraine, it could be seen as endorsing separatism, potentially encouraging independence movement in Taiwan or Hong Kong. Yeah, because they think that there was but this is another irony because right now Russia is actually supporting separatism in Ukraine, like Crimea and also Eastern Ukraine. Actually, Russia is supporting those people to break away from Ukraine. So it's a rather irony because when China afraid that there will be international support of Taiwan and Hong Kong, but they forgot that Russia is actually leading another separatism movement in Ukraine. And this is another propaganda to talk about how Ukrainian neo-Nazi supporting Hong Kong's protest. Yeah, that is from China. Yeah, they try to link the Ukrainian neo-Nazi to Hong Kong's democratic movement. Yeah, that's how China did in the Chinese language war. And the third reason is that China needs a resource from from Russia, like natural gas, nuclear fuel, grain, timber, and rare metals, even weapon systems. Like China is still buying fighter jets from Russia, like Su-27, Su-30, Su-33, and also it tried to seek help from Russia to develop its aircraft, a civilian aircraft. This is called CR-929. It was planned to use Russian engine, but right now Russia can no longer provide engine to China because it is in war with Ukraine. Yeah, so, but you can see China really needs assistance from Russia, so it has to stand together with Russia. And the fourth reason is that by encouraging confrontation between Russia and the West, Beijing may hope that the two rivals will weaken each other, reducing pressure on China. As I said, China is not really a natural ally with Russia. So it also uses this opportunity to weaken Russia. So because you have to know Russia and China shares the longest land border in the world. So China really also consider Russia as one of its biggest enemy too. So it had to support Russia, pretend to support Russia against the West. So it can weaken both the West and Russia. Yeah. And this is why are there voices in Taiwan rooting for Russia? This is Guo Zhenliang. He also support Russia. You can see CRNTT is also a Chinese media outlet in Taiwan. One of its goals is to promote Chinese narrative in Taiwan. And a lot of retired politicians from both parties, I think they are getting money from China to speak for the Chinese, for the communist China's narrative. You can see that those are all the pro-Russian language. He said I think that's in 2022, right after the war began. He thinks that the United States will sell out Ukraine, just like how it sell out Taiwan in 1979 when the United States built an official relationship with Beijing and break the relation with Taiwan. He thinks that will repeat again after the war. after the Russian invasion against Ukraine. And also, the reason why there are some Taiwanese who support Russia is because they have greater China or Russian aligned nationalism. You can see that some commentators embrace narrative aligned with border anti-West sentiment shared by PRs and Russian propaganda, because there are also people in Taiwan. They are minority, not too many of them, but most of them are in very old age. But there are still people in Taiwan supporting unification with Russia, with China. So they embrace the greater Slavic nationalism, just like they embrace greater China nationalism. They think Taiwan and China should stand together. So they support Russia. This is one of the reasons. And second is that Taiwan's internal parties and politics. There are far-right parties in Taiwan and far-left parties in Taiwan. They are both minority, but they are either very extremely anti-China or they are very extremely supportive of China. So when they are fighting against each other for powers, they will amplify all the radical narrative from different part of the world. So I think the second reason is Taiwan's internal parties and politics. One is the far independent, the party supporting independent, and another one is a new party, which is the party Hou Hanting, the one of the narrative, one of the figure came from. That's the poor unification party in Taiwan. And third one is geopolitical realism. Yeah, a lot of people in Taiwan believe that the smaller country, smaller actor like Taiwan or Ukraine should not provoke any war against a giant neighbor. Doesn't matter the neighbor is Russia or China. So they think that the way Ukrainian they want to join the NATO or they want to join EU, they think is one of they are provoking Putin to launch an invasion. So that's the third narrative. And the fourth one is anti-Americanism. There are people in Taiwan who doesn't like the United States because the United States broke off the relationship of Taiwan in 1979, and they no longer believe that it is Taiwan's best interest to be a partner of the United States. They think it would be better to appease China or Russia for you to stay safe. That's a lot of people in Taiwan actually believe in that. And the fourth one is, again, I want to say that because Ukraine back in 1990, they sold weapon system to China. This is another reason why many Taiwanese, even those who support independence from China, oppose Ukraine because they think Ukraine is the reason why China got aircraft carrier. That's Liaoning. Yeah, that's another reason. I think it's only excuses, but they still believe in it. And right now, even the major party in Taiwan, they no longer stand firmly with Ukraine anymore. This is the new chairman of the opposition, Kuomintang. You can say that when she was interviewed by the media, by journalists, she said that Putin is not a dictator. Can you play this? Yeah.
Views on Taiwan's military expenditures and
It's almost finished.
cross-strait conflict.
决定权并不在台湾手上，而是在习近
Okay.
平手上。那我跟您报告，因为作为欧洲的媒体
我完，全
那是您不这么认为吗？
那你不是访问我吗？
对对对对对，
那如果你不想听我的话，你今
不
天何必
是
访问我？
我还没把问题问完嘛，我还没把问题。
You can see the
Done with the
subtitle.
discussion, while Deng feels like he's cutting her off. Soon, Deng dropped what's arguably the biggest bombshell.
能够决定的是这个独裁者，而不是其他。
郑丽文, her name. She is a new chairman of Kuomintang. She was elected last year.
你这是开启了一个新的国际的一个理论。
Yeah, she said Putin is
The
not a
interview was more
dictator.
like getting Deng into a debate.
对我们有什么样的成？
People may hold certain presumptions or misunderstandings against us. Through opportunities for conversation, we hope that more people will get to understand the KMT. Putin also went through democratic elections and was elected with votes for him, so I was surprised he was called a dictator.
So Hitler is a democratic leader too, according to what she says. Okay, this one is finished. But not only the opposition party, even sorry about that. There was also an argument between Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te and Zelensky a few months ago, because at that time, Zelensky also accused Taiwan of supporting Russia with component of missile. system. So there was an argument between President Lai Ching-te and Zelensky too. I think it took place. It happened in January. Yeah, 2 months ago. There was also a fighting between the ruling DPP and the Ukrainian. And the reason why I think this happened is because when Taiwan and the Ukraine, if they want to stand together, the leader of the free world, the United States, must support both nations firmly. So they will come together. If the United States doesn't support their ally as firmly as before, for real geopolitical reason, Taiwan and Ukraine will seek their own partnership. For example, Ukraine will seek help from China against Russia, and Taiwan might seek help from Russia against China. This is how geopolitics work. So I think what's the implication of this is that I think we should stand firmly. Everybody who supports democracy, doesn't matter you're American, Taiwanese, Chinese, Russian, or Ukrainian, should all stand together to fight against the aggressors or those authoritarian countries. That's the only way for you to confront those cognitive warfare. And I think there are 4 lessons to learn. First, Russian narrative penetrate the Chinese language information space. PRC information ecosystem amplifies them. And also Taiwan become a cognitive battlefield. And the 4th one is democratic society must strengthen literacy. Yes, we must stand together to fight against the Russian information warfare. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you. Can you understand me clearly? Okay. Okay, you have any questions? Please.
You have a mic or? Okay. So there's over 1 million Taiwanese doing some form of business in mainland China.
Yes.
And they get very good economic tax breaks and incentives. What are their views as far as some sort of economic reunification or political
Yeah, why the fuck would you mute it?
between China and Taiwan?
I think
they're Chinese at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I'm the perfect guy to answer this because my family they had business in China too. I don't think most of them really want to be unified by the communist China because they know how the people in China live under the system, and the reason why they get privilege from the communist government is because they are Taiwanese. They are treated with special treatment, but if they become Chinese with other mainlanders, they will be treated equally with the mainland Chinese. So I think they mostly focus to earn money in China, but they don't really talk. They try to avoid talking about politics because if they talk about politics, they get trouble. So they will avoid talking about the topic. Yeah, and sometimes they will just try. They are mostly those people who support the geopolitical realism. So they are always the one, like my family member, they always say, don't provoke China. We can stay safe with them. We can deal with them. Yeah, I think, but I don't really think they really want to be ruled by the communist China. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Like I say, you're right after me. Thank you. Okay. One thing I mentioned in previous presentations and what I've noticed on a few YouTube videos, cross-border tourism. I know that Russia has recently gotten a lot of green lights or a lot of support for North Korean tourism, and I saw a few CGTN, which is Chinese state media, to the U.S.'s channels. Do you believe that? Excuse me. That their media stories about Russian tourists going to China is just regular news, or do you think there's like a hidden message behind those kinds of stories?
Definitely, there is a hidden message, and also there are some Russian influencers being used by the Communist Party of China to show how good China is, how rich China is. I think his name is Fu La Fu. He's so famous, he's so funny. He always say 中国太棒了. Every time when he show his video clip, he say China is so great. The air is so good, and China is so great. It has toilet. China is so good. It has door. He will always say those things because I think the reason why they use Russian to do it is because Russian, they are white too, Caucasians too, so they will make the Chinese people to believe that even the Western country they love China. They are using Russia to introduce their narrative too, and also there are ethnic Chinese in the Western world too. They are also target for the communist China and Russia. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Taiwan has been a victim, as you pointed out in your presentation, of Russian propaganda and disinformation, and also a victim of Chinese propaganda and disinformation, maybe even more so, and has a lot of experience to share in that area. Another country that has a lot of targeting from China and some from Russia is Japan. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how much Taiwan cooperates with Japan and what's preventing more cooperation with Japan to fight both Russia and China propaganda.
For currently, I think the reason why China is able to penetrate to Japan is because the young Chinese people, they also watch the Japanese anime. So they use that as a weapon against Japan. And they also make a lot of video games. And they can also, because the Japanese young people, they also like to play Chinese video game like Yuansen. There's a one called Yuansen. And this video game, they also use Japanese voice actors. When they publish the Japanese version of the game, they use the Japanese voice actors or actress to do it. So they create a bond between Chinese and Japanese young people indirectly. So sometimes the Chinese regime may use this as an opportunity to amplify, to infiltrate their message to the Japanese society. But I don't think it really worked that well because there are also a strong anti-Japanese sentiment in China. And that also triggers strong anti-Chinese sentiment in Japan because, you know, the PRC, they use the anti-Japanese history as a tool to attract, how do I say that? To make sure that the Chinese nationalism standing on their side, because the history memory shows that a lot of Chinese still view the Japanese as their greatest enemy. Like I said, the rape of Nanking.
Is it true in Taiwan too?
Not right now, not anymore. Back then maybe, but not right now. Today, most Taiwanese, they love Japanese. I like Japanese too. So yeah, but for Chinese, I think for younger generation Chinese, they like Japanese entertainment, Japanese manga, Japanese animation. But older generation, they still have those old memories. So it also prevents China and Japan from really cooperating with each other. So the Chinese narrative is harder for Chinese narrative to be amplified in Japan. But and also for cooperation between Taiwan and Japan, I'm not sure about that. But currently Taiwan has a very strong civil society, and there are also websites there to fight against the Chinese or Russian narrative, Russian disinformation warfare. And I don't know how good it really works, but it works in some way because if you are really researching, if you really want to see the truth, you can still find those websites in Taiwan, those civilian websites. They teach you how to. They are very helpful for you to learn the different story from the Russian narrative. Yes.
I have a question. A little bit of nuance about history. The political legitimacy of the Commandant comes from their fight against the Japanese occupation. And at that time, their most important ally was the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union at the Battle of Khankingo stopped the Japanese expansion in Mongolia and potentially in Siberia. And during the late 30s, the Soviet Union is the major support of the Commandant, not only to the communists in their fight against the Japanese. And as you probably know, the son of Chiang Kai-shek was actually in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, Chiang Jing-kuo.
And his wife is a Soviet Russian.
Yeah.
So when you're saying that Taiwan, they don't know much about Russia and that they hate the Russians, that's a little bit of overstatement of the historical reality.
It depends because in 19...
Well, it always depends.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's not all black.
Yeah, but in 30s, you say it's right because Russians support the Republic of China with fighters like I-16, I-15, those spy planes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, but later on, they turn into enemy again because Russia was supporting the independence of Xinjiang and Mongolia. Yeah, But after the retreat of KMT to Taiwan, all the education is called 反共抗俄, the anti-communist and the opposing the Russian invasion. So if you are educated during that period of time, most of you are anti-Soviet Union or anti-Russia. Yeah. Yeah, but just like depend, even later the communist China, they turn against the Soviets. So
back from the mid-50s, there was a problem with Russia and China.
Yeah.
In Taiwan, they liked Russia having problems with China.
Yeah,
I'm
because
just saying,
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
so it's
Yeah.
a lot more nuanced by saying Taiwan, they hate Russia.
For now, because most people they don't the young people growing up after the left
The
of
president was Russian. The grandkids of Chiang Kai-shek were half Russian.
yeah.
So
But right now, do you know Jiang Wan'an, the mayor of Taipei? He's also Chiang Kai-shek. Yeah. Yeah, but he's not half Russian. Yeah. Yeah, he has two wives. Jiang Jingguo. Yeah. Yeah. It's very complicated. Yeah. 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 I know. Yeah. It's very complicated. Just like U.S.-Russia relation or U.S.-European relation. Yeah. Very complicated, the history. I can hold another talk about that topic later on if you like it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to piggyback on the question from this gentleman, yes, I mean there is a bit of, I guess, neutrality, at least from the Taiwanese people, even though we were actually educated by the Kuomintang to hate the communists and all that stuff. But when Chen Shui-bian, who was the president of Taiwan and stuff, he did actually reach out to Putin when Putin was still a mayor.
Yeah. Just as I said, both political party they are formed under a Lenin model party. Both KMT and DPP, they are all formed after the model of Soviet Communist Party. So in some way, both parties still endorse the way Lenin and Stalin run the party. Yeah.
So what happened was that when Taiwan had a big earthquake back in the late 90s and stuff, Putin was kind enough to send in some, I guess, helpers to clean up the aftermath of earthquake. That was something that Taiwan people remember. Yet, geopolitics got into the thing, and now that kind of friendship or whatever that was there is no more because Putin is increasingly siding with China and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all from the memory of the 90s because most Taiwanese they grew up in that period when Ukraine was the one supporting China with the weapon, and when Russia was was more friendly to Taiwan back then. Right after the breakup of Soviet Union, Russia was more friendly toward Taiwan. It has a representative office in Taipei, while Ukraine has not. So that's the reason why there are many Taiwanese actually support Russia more than Ukraine. Yeah, that's for sure.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My name is Anton. I'm from George Washington University. I have actually two questions. First, you listed all these influencers. I'm curious, what's the percentage of support and how persuaded people are in Taiwan by these influencers, for instance, 747?
I don't think he still has credibility in Taiwan because most of his prediction didn't materialize. So
But do you have data, like some research on this, how influential they are right now?
I don't think so. There's data about how people believe in the 747, but I think many old people do buy his comment. Many older generation people, and they don't really know the language, the Russian, and if they don't know the history between China and Russia, they might buy those narratives. Yeah.
Okay, then the second question, is there a cancel culture existing that allows these people to be canceled in a society if they promote such narratives or not?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, is there a cancel culture, for instance, a person who's promoting these pro-Russian narratives being exposed by society and then canceled?
No, because Taiwan is a democratic country. We have just like the United States, we all have the freedom of speech. You cannot really punish those people or throw them into jail or fine.
Cancel culture is more like societal phenomena. It's not law-wise.
Not to interrupt you, but as an example, the government's not cutting them off, but however, they suffered embarrassment. They lost face.
Yeah, they do, but doesn't really work. I think this is my personal opinion. I think China do put money in, so many people they like to they like to do that because they can get rich, just like those commentator I show you, they get money. Yeah, if you go to one of those just talk show, you get like $100 a time. If you go to the show free time, you get like almost 300. That's all. Yeah, if you go there for a month, you get a lot of money. Yeah, and also a lot of them are retired politicians too. They do have some credibility in Taiwan too, and people might buy them what they said. Yeah, they are from both parties, and they were once most important figure in Taiwan, like in 90s or early 2000s. So they still have some supporters in Taiwan. Yeah.
Okay, then last question from me.
Okay.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate effectiveness of this pro-Russian narrative?
I think back then, during the beginning of the war, I think maybe 40% something. But right now, I think 60%. Yeah.
I came here after a very long day, but the presentation was very nice.
Thank you very much.
So my question is more of technical because I do similar observation of narrative in Africa. So what kind of tools and methodologies you use to identify those primary narratives?
Okay.
Tools to identify
narrative. Yeah. How do you? We see some of your findings on the slides, but I want to see what kind of data set you have to conclude that.
Because I just serving the internet, because back then when I was working for the legislator, we have to do we have to search the public opinion from the all the different websites, and also like there's an app called Lines in Taiwan. Do you know Lines?
Line, yeah.
Yeah, Lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of them will send those Russian narrative to me, even include my family members. They sometimes even then show me a lot. And there are also groups in Taiwan, especially some group that are formed out by retired military personnel. They are also sharing those Russian information, disinformation videos. So those are how I collect them. And many of them are actually KOL, many of those influentials. They also use Russian narrative in Taiwan, as I show you in the slides. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, this is a question for the author, and also to piggyback on the question that raised by the gentleman from Georgetown. So what happened is that my understanding is a lot of those, I guess, mainstream or I guess,
influencer.
Influencers. They are not really going to be affected because they have a hardcore group of followers who may be small but are very vocal. And the thing is that they're mostly retired people, which means they have the time to go to vote. While so young people, they tend to not care.
Yeah.
So also the problem here is that my question to Arthur is that that being the case, Taiwan being a democracy, I mean, other than waiting for those old people to die off by old age and stuff, okay, is there any way to really break down this, I guess, this propaganda? Because the thing is that we cannot, of course, do censorship. We cannot target them and say ban the free speech, okay? And they don't listen to the other viewpoints and stuff because they're brainwashed.
Yes.
So what do you suggest that the free world do to counter this then?
I think half and half. Maybe those old people, when they die off, maybe it will be finished. But but as I show you, I use those examples. Most of them are young people actually. You mean see Hou Hanting and Huang Zishou, they are young. They are relatively younger, and even younger than me. So there will always be people supporting Russia for different motivations. Some are for the money, some are for the nationalism, or some are for the anti-Western sentiment. There will always be voices like that in Taiwan, or even in Europe, even in Japan. There will always be people like that. Yeah. Maybe there are few people, maybe there are fewer, but there will still always be people like this.
So we can do nothing other than.
They may be reduced. Their influence may be reduced, but they will not be wiped out completely. Yes, I don't think so. Yeah, it's because we are democratic nations. We cannot do certain things Putin or Xi Jinping can do. I don't think in US or Taiwan can do. Yeah. Okay, he wants to say.
This is Ryan Pryor. I'm just a recent graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School. And I recently took a trip to Ukraine and spoke with a member of the Ukrainian parliament about this issue of Russian propaganda. And I asked him, what can we do about it? And I remember him saying something to the effect of, like, we should punch them in the nose, fight fire with fire, hand them back exactly what they're handing to us, which I was a little bit shocked by at the time. But I think it was like setting the record straight would be maybe a nicer way of saying it. But a huge multi-million-dollar, maybe billion-dollar effort to fix it. And so I'm curious about your last bullet point here about democratic societies and strengthening media literacy. And then in terms of like policy prescriptions, do you have recommendations on how we can push back on this?
Yeah, there are definitely ways to do it if you put budget in, but I think this can be a starting point for democratic countries like Taiwan, US, Japan to work together to confront those kind of narrative from Russia and China. I think, yeah, we should definitely invest more money and more resource and more human into it. Yeah.
Sorry, I already asked a question, but I'm compelled now to respond to some of these other questions. I worked for 3 years in the Global Engagement Center in the United States, which was specifically focused on fighting Russian and Chinese disinformation and propaganda.
Yeah.
And what we learned there when we existed in the United States, and we worked very closely with Taiwan and other countries, you can't fight back on a specific argument. You just spend all your time running around chasing, and they keep creating new lies, new arguments.
Yeah.
What you do is you destroy the credibility of the person sending it, the influencer, the media organization. You reveal to the public what they want to hide from the public, which is their ties to Russia, or if they're getting paid, or if they're always putting out lies to the public. And then you appeal to nationalism by saying, the people of your country are smarter than that. You're not going to be fooled by these people. And you undermine their credibility, which makes it harder for them to then peddle their lies. To use an old Russian folktale, it's kind of like Peter and the Wolf. If you get people to not believe the stories, then it's harder for them to push the fables. And it is frustrating because they spend a lot of money. The Russians spend $6 billion a year, the Chinese more, on pushing lies out.
Yeah.
And we don't spend anything like that to fight it. And going after them, I mean, it's hard because they come from countries where nobody gets access to free information.
Yeah.
So they can do this safely because their own countries don't have access to any information except what the government wants them to hear.
Yeah.
And they take advantage of our open societies and freedom to make it harder. But we can fight back. And the example I always use is, has anyone ever heard of Nigerian crown princes who used to send emails? Everyone laughs because now if you get an email or a text from a Nigerian crown prince who wants to share $1 million with you, if you just give him your bank account, you're either going to delete it or ignore it. That scam failed because people learned that it was a scam. If we get people to see the propaganda and the disinformation for what it is, and the minute you get a message saying, this is a secret that the government doesn't want you to know, but I'm sharing it just with you, even though I don't know you. If you sort of apply the same radar to messages you get from people you don't understand or organizations you don't respect, then eventually it will go away. But we have to train and educate a lot of people, because there are a lot of people out there who fall for these scams, like the Nigerian crown prince, except now it's not a Nigerian crown prince, it's a Russian pretending to be a person in Taiwan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason. Another obstacle is that those authoritarian nations, it's very hard for us to fight them because their society is closed society. It's harder for us to infiltrate our narrative into those countries like China and Russia. But when they make mistake, when those influencers they make mistake, as he said, we can use that opportunity to show how fake the Russian narrative is. Just like Mr. 747, when he always predict that Russia will win, eventually it didn't win. Yeah, that will make them like a joke. Yeah, that's what I think we should do, is to find their mistake and.
So while media literacy is central to
in information warfare, right, the media literacy and different initiatives in that regard are very important in fighting information warfare, especially if it's sponsored by Russia or China. I wanted to ask, though, to what degree is anti-Western sentiment at large or anti-American sentiment the predisposition to believe the Russian problem? So some you're like there are historical narratives, there are all kinds of grievances in geopolitics that are there, but in particularly among youth, what do you find just general anti-Western sentiment that leads to embracing these narratives despite efforts at media literacy?
I don't really believe those influencers, they really believe in what they say, because while they criticize American, they like to come to America for for traveling or for touring.
But the ideas and the information that they're spreading are
definitely people in Taiwan. I don't really think they are really anti-Western or really anti-America, but because the relationship between Taiwan and the United States is very complicated. Yeah, once it was anti-communist ally, but also historically the U.S. bombed Taiwan during World War II, and also later on it break off the relationship of Taiwan. There are some reasons for Taiwanese people to have some distance, political distance from the United States, and also yeah, but I don't think they really hate America, because all those happened like more than 30 years ago, 3 decades ago. And all what Taiwanese people really worry about that is the United States is really going to commit itself to Taiwan's defense when it is invaded by China. If the United States doesn't come to help Taiwan, I think that's what we call 以美论. I don't know how to translate that into English, but they will question the United States whether you will come to aid Taiwan when the time is here, because Taiwan is technically not an ally of the United States. There is a Taiwan Relation Act, but Taiwan is not a U.S. ally like Japan and South Korea. People in Taiwan, they don't really know whether the U.S. will come to help or not. So that's
that understanding in itself, not that they're against America, but this kind of creates a wedge where the disinformation can flourish.
Yeah. China can use this to tell Taiwanese, say the United States is not worth to trust, but if you trust me, we can avoid the war together, and we can work together as brothers because we are both ethnic Chinese brotherhood. So you Taiwanese can earn money from China instead of wasting your money to buy American weapons. They use some narrative like this against Taiwan, for sure. Yeah.
More questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you.